Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you for clicking on yet another Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette review. This has to be like, I don't know, video number 229 on YouTube. Anyone and everyone's filming a video about the Subculture palette. I saw a good amount, almost around like 15 reviews about it, to the point that I got really worried about this palette and trying it out, because this was my first Anastasia Beverly Hills purchase that wasn't brow related, and I was super excited about this palette. I purchased it the day it came out on the Anastasia website, so once I saw the reviews I was like, holy shit, like did I make a did I make a mistake buying that palette the day it came out? And I actually tried out the palette on camera for the first time in my playing with new makeup video. In that video, I was initially worried once I dipped my brush into Dawn, which is this shade, because this is by far the most powdery shade in the palette, at least for my palette. But once I started, you know, applying the other shades, blending them out and everything, I really liked it and I really loved the look that I came up with. And I made it a mission to use it every single day after I filmed that video. So I've used this palette for, this would be my, I think today was my 6th time using it. I've done colorful looks, more muted looks. On Monday when I went to jury duty, boring fact, I did a very, you know, very neutral look. So you can do a lot with this palette, and if you follow me on social media, it's no big secret that I really love this palette, and this is how mine looks like. So it's not battered up. I haven't hit pan on any of the shades. So yeah, I really like it. I can see why it's getting some of the criticism it is, but you know, personally I just really like it. So in this video I'm going to talk about why I personally enjoy this palette, why I would recommend it, and to whom I would recommend this to, because I really don't think this palette is beginner friendly whatsoever. If this is your first venture into a high-end palette, I would probably advise you to go with something else, maybe Urban Decay Naked or something more beginner friendly. But yeah, in this video I'm going to talk about a few of the things regarding this palette. Hopefully this will help you out whether you want to purchase it, or maybe help you save some money. So let's get started. So let's get the small and minute details out of the way. This is how the palette looks like. I'm sure all of you have seen it by now. It has a velvet packaging in the exterior. I really like the teal with the like bright kind of orangey macaroni and cheese color in the letters. You open it up, you get a brush. The brush has a blending side right here. It's not the best quality, but it does the trick. I have used it a few times and it does blend out eyeshadow pretty decently. And it also has a very dense, almost paddle shaped brush at the end. This I really like. It works really well just to press the eyeshadow on the lid. You can do a little bit of blending as well. So this side I really like. This one, it does the job. It's not my favorite. Once you open the palette, you do get a very nice sized mirror up here. You get 14 eyeshadows. The majority of them are matte. And we have 2 that are kind of dual chrome, very iridescent, more on the sheer side, and then you get Adorn, which is this beautiful metallic, very smooth eyeshadow. So you get a really nice variety. Of course, this color palette will not be for everyone, but I personally really loved it. This is the reason why I purchased the palette, because the color switch is so different, especially so different from what has been trending recently. So it's not your, you know, warm tone eyeshadows like you've seen all over the place this summer. So I really love the variety of shades. I love the teals, I love the greens, the cool tones. You get a few warm tones. So personally, this just spoke to me, and I'm not disappointed at all with the way these eyeshadows apply. These are talc based, which a lot of people have been giving them crap about. Talc does not mean that it's cheap. It doesn't mean that. I work at Bare Minerals. A lot of our powders, especially the more recent powders like the Bare Pro, they're talc based. Talc is a mineral. Yes, it's a little bit more powdery. Maybe you do have to kind of learn how to work with it. I don't know, maybe I'm just so used to working with powders by now that this was no problem, but Personally, I did not find talc to be an issue whatsoever. One of the things that I learned about this palette once, you know, everything exploded on social media was that this is basically pigments that are pressed into, you know, the eyeshadow pan. They're not a regular eyeshadow. They're not, you know, that buttery, smooth pigment that has a lot of binders, because these don't have a lot of binders. These are just very, I wouldn't say dry, but they're a different formula. It's something that I definitely have not experienced. I don't find that every single shade is very powdery and kicks up powder like crazy. Dawn definitely does. This is by far the most powdery one, but once you do pick up the eyeshadow, you can blend it very easily. You can lay it on the eye very easily. So the fact that these are a little bit of a drier pigment type formula hasn't affected anything for me. It hasn't affected application, it hasn't affected blendability, hasn't affected, you know, the color, how it shows on my skin. I haven't experienced any oxidation, any fading, nothing whatsoever, and I'm not using anything special to make the eyeshadows adhere to my eyelids. The only thing I use is my favorite primer, which is the NARS, what is this, the Pro Prime Smudge Proof Primer, which I use pretty much with any eyeshadow formula. I'm personally not going out of my way to make these work. I'm not having to blend more or to be even more light-handed than I normally am. I have noticed that in a lot of the reviews, I see people using a very harsh hand with these eyeshadows, or just kind of swirling it. And when you swirl your brush into whatever eyeshadow formula, you're always going to get kick up. It's bound to happen just because you're swirling into with pressure. So with these eyeshadows, and pretty much with any type of eyeshadow, what you want to do to pick up eyeshadow is to gently, you know, tap it in. Yes, I'm using Dawn as an example, which is the most powdery shade, but still, you're seeing that when I tap, yes, some powder comes off, but it's not that poof of powder that you're seeing a lot on YouTube. Let's do it again. I'm using another brush, and I have used both synthetic and natural hair bristle brushes. If you just go in with a pat, yes, some powder will kind of loosen up a little bit, but it's not excessive, which I've seen a lot on YouTube. Let's take this. I'm going to just pat it in, picks up the right amount, and you're not left with a mountain of powder. So that would be my tip if you're looking forward to trying this eyeshadow. Definitely don't swirl, just tap, or maybe do a light sweep, and that would be it. As mentioned before, I've used a variety of different brushes for this palette, and it's all worked just fine for me. I've used natural hair bristles like the MAC. I have the 224 and the 217 right here. I've also used this palette with synthetic brushes. This is from It Cosmetics for Ulta. This is just a little Ulta eyeshadow brush that I got in a palette. And this is a Morphe brush. So it doesn't really matter to me. These eyeshadows just work with any type of fiber, in my opinion. And I've also used the brush that's included in this palette to create a look, and it works just fine. So that's basically my 2 cents on this palette. I absolutely love it. I love the colors. I love the way they apply and blend out. The pigmentation is insane just because it is a pigment pressed into an eyeshadow pan, so they're intense. Gotta be very careful, but the fallout isn't much of an issue. I did my makeup on camera, which you will see in just a few minutes, and I didn't get any fallout on my cheeks whatsoever, and I was using a lot of the very dark shades today, so I really love it. I would recommend you to go to Sephora, check it out for yourself, swatch it, play around with it, see if you would get along with this type of formulation, because it is a lot more different than, let's say, a drugstore eyeshadow formula or the MAC eyeshadow. Something that's almost a little bit more pro level. And I'm not a pro makeup artist whatsoever. I'm just a makeup aficionado. I do work at a makeup store, but Bare Minerals isn't, you know, this artistry brand. It is mostly a brand for the everyday woman. So if I can make it work, I'm sure a lot of you can make it work as well. If you've been attracted to these colors, definitely check it out. I really love it. I don't feel like I wasted my money, and I'm definitely not going to be asking for a refund or the new, like, more tightly pressed version, because I know Norvina has talked about that you could get a refund and they're going to be pressing it a little bit tighter. So I'm personally fine with this. I don't feel like it's a batch issue because I have the, what is it, the P7 batch, which a lot of people were saying that was the bad one. To me, it works just perfectly. So yeah, I really love this palette. It's worked well for me. That's all I will say. So now that you saw my review, let's jump on to this tutorial. I'm going to begin this look by applying Dawn as my transition shade. So as you see, I gently tap the brush into the eyeshadow, and once I get the pigment onto the brush, then I tap the color onto my eyelid before I start blending out. I'm using the MAC 217 to blend out the eyeshadow. The next shade I'm going to be picking up is Axis, which is this beautiful teal color. So with this, it is very, very pigmented, very dark. So I just get a little bit of a pigment onto my brush, and then the first thing I do, just like I did with Dawn, I press the eyeshadow onto my lid before I do any of the blending. So you can see now that I laid the eyeshadow onto my lid, I can start blending out. I haven't picked up any more pigment onto my brush. This is just what's on my lid. So when I say these colors are pigmented, they're extremely, extremely pigmented. And here I am doing the same steps on the other eye. I mentioned in the review portion of this video that I find that the brush that's included in the palette, the blending side at least, is a little bit scratchy. Does it work? Yes, and that's why I'm using it to demonstrate my point. It does work. Is it my favorite blending brush? No. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more of Axis and I'm going to intensify this color. So with these eyeshadows and basically any formula that I work with, I like working little by little. So I'll start off with just laying the eyeshadow, blending it out, and then if I want it more intense, I'll go at it again with a second layer. That's just how I like to work with, and that's definitely one of the best techniques that you can use with this particular formula. Now I'm going to take Adorn, which is this beautiful metallic copper shade. Oh my god, I love this color. And I'm going to be placing it on the part of my lid where I didn't put any eyeshadow. So the center of the eyelid, and I'm using the petal shaped side of the brush that's included with the palette. So as you can tell, this color is super pigmented and it's just stunning. It's one of my favorite shades in the palette. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Destiny, which is this very matte kind of khaki green shade, and I'm going to first place it on the crease, and I'm using the blending side of the brush that's included in the palette, and then I'm going to do some blending. And now using a clean blending brush, I'm just going to blend eyeshadows a little bit more. This is again another technique that I often use, especially when doing a smoky eye. If your halo eye is not looking as symmetrical as possible, then this is when you can take a little bit more of the darker shade to just even out the center of the eyelid. Now moving on to the lower lash line, the first color that I'm going to pick up is All Star. This shade reminds me of an eggplant color. It's purple with a red undertone. It's a stunning shade, especially if you have brown eyes like mine. And I'm going to just smudge it, diffuse it very, very nicely on the lower lash line. Now I'm going to take a little bit of Rowdy. This shade is very dark, so you gotta be careful. First, I just laid the color on the outer half of my lower lash line, then cleaned my brush a little bit, and then I started diffusing. for eyeliner, I'm going to be taking Edge, which is this orangey yellow shade. It honestly reminds me of cheddar cheese. Kind of odd, but I don't know why these colors just remind me of food. Maybe I'm a little bit hungry right now. So I'm going to use this particular shade as eyeliner. I saw Easy Neon do it and I just wanted to try it out. First I tried to draw, it was giving me a hard time, so then I grabbed my Inglot Duraline and just created basically my own mixture of Duraline and the eyeshadow, and it definitely made it a lot easier to use it as an eyeliner. Since the wings weren't as clean, I just took a little bit of concealer and cleaned it up a little bit. Now I'm simply going to add eyeliner on my tight line and waterline and then add a hefty amount of mascara, since I don't typically use falsies in my video or in regular life. I'm not that YouTube beauty guru that wears falsies all the time. And for the finishing touch, I'm just going to grab Electric just on my fingertip, and I'm going to pop that shade in the inner corner of my eyes. And here's a close-up of my palette right after I used it in this tutorial. So as you can see, it's not excessively powdery. I haven't hit pan on any of the shades. And this is the finished look, which I absolutely love. It's very dramatic, very fall-like. I just can't wait for fall so I can wear this eyeshadow way more than I already do. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed my review and also the tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below and I will be more than glad to answer them. If you're brand new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye! Now let's try the ColourPop No Filter Concealer. This has a much flatter applicator, as you can see. Oh, this is much thicker. I'm gonna use the same brush to just blend it out. Holy crap! Are you kidding me? This is so bright.